This podcast is part of the Podcast Arcade Network.
Welcome to episode 29 of Paranormal Dads. I'm your co-host Andy.
I'm your co-host Eddie.
I'm your co-host Pat.
Join us as we go in search of the world's monsters, myths, and mysteries right here on Paranormal Dads.
Okay, so recent sightings. Dateline, Montana.
Ooh, breaking news.
You know
Dateline,
it's getting serious right now.
I'm already laughing just because I know what the story is.
Get your muskets.
No offense to any of our Montana listeners. We love Montana.
It's
Beautiful
gorgeous.
country. Yeah,
my goodness
it is.
gracious. I've actually only clipped into a little bit for some work stuff and then clipped right back out, but it was gorgeous.
But a Montana man who was out target shooting became a target himself when another shooter unloaded a barrage of gunfire at him, mistaking him for none other than Bigfoot.
Man, see, if I had a nickel for every time that happens to me when I'm hunting, and then I then in turn become the hunted.
Happens every time Eddie runs out of razors, so there must be some sort of correlation there.
Well, the problem is I go looking for razors in the forest. That's my first. I am really the creator of my own troubles.
They're usually kind of rusty once you find them there, though.
Exactly. That's the only kind I know how to use.
So this 27-year-old shooter told authorities that he was putting up targets outside of Helena. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
Helena.
Yeah.
Helena. And when bullets started flying towards him, one round came within 3 feet of the victim. We shouldn't be laughing. And another whizzed by even closer. He told police. The man said he ran behind some nearby trees for cover and eventually confronted the shooter who was driving, I love how this is a fact, a Ford F-150 pickup.
Ooh. The most notorious of all pickups. Well, the reason why I laugh is because of the scene from The Jerk popped into my head about the cans where he's like, he hates these cans.
He hates these cans.
He hates these targets. He tries to hide. Oh, man.
So the shooter told him, "I thought you were Bigfoot." And he says, I don't take target practice, but if I think I see something that looks like Bigfoot, I shoot at it.
Ooh, well.
And so he advised the young man, next time wear an orange vest when you go out so I don't mistake you for Bigfoot.
So it's not my fault. It's
No,
your
it's your
fault.
fault.
See, that victim shaming is again with a thing that I'm sick of this. He started blaming the guy.
Now, apparently there's something questionable about this report because apparently the victim has spoken to police before of similar type things where his story never really panned out. Right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, a local media reported that a woman said she had a similar experience when she was shot at by a man with an F-150 as well.
Well, I mean, it's probably fair to say it's a pretty popular truck.
Yeah.
It's like a scene out of Mad Max. Dude just drives around trying to shoot people. And what? I thought he was Bigfoot.
The way that article read, I thought that it was like...
I thought it was a joke.
Like the man thought he was being shot at by Bigfoot. Like, bullets start going, oh, God darn it, it's Bigfoot shooting at me again. He's got a gun.
He's Harry in the Hendersons and he's pissed.
He's got a gun. Harry in the Hendersons, too. Dirty Harry.
But if you are one of our listeners in Montana, rest at ease that the police chief does not believe the public at large is in danger because of people shooting at Bigfoot. It says it's an isolated geographic area, isolated incident. Go ahead and keep squatching.
You're okay. Montana's full of these small towns too. Wouldn't you hate to be known as the guy that just starts popping off bullets at whatever he sees that he thinks is Bigfoot?
Hey, if I think you're Bigfoot, I'm going to shoot you.
If I see your dog in the woods, I think it's Bigfoot. It's going to be
No, I'm not a hunter, but I've heard that there's a general rule of thumb by hunters that you don't shoot at something if you don't know what it is.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's your firearms training lesson for the day, kids.
Generally, safety first.
I've always thought about getting one of those, and they sell them, on the outskirts of Omaha. Giant 7-foot tall metal silhouette cut out of Bigfoot, and I kind of want to put it in my backyard, which backs up to a nature preserve.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a walking path, so a lot of people, going by. But then again, after hearing a story like this, I almost don't want to in case some jackwagon out there. I don't want my house to be, barrage of gunfire.
This is Bigfoot. Puts one right into your bedroom window.
Right. Lodges right in my recliner right next to my head. What? I thought you were the big fella himself.
He's like, if you're not Bigfoot, move. Bang. Jeez. That's how that would go down. You should get one, and then we could all take bets on when it gets shot.
Yeah.
I do want one of those, though.
What's really creepy is those 3D ones. That they're made of wood, and there's one.
I've seen those.
For those who are local, it's on the way to right off the interstate on the way to Fort Calhoun, and it's about 6 foot tall, and it's like 3-dimensional and everything, but it's wood, and it looks like Sasquatch just kind of walking. And first time I ever saw it, my heart did skip a beat because it looks real.
Yeah,
so
that's almost shame on them at that point. Like when you put a
Yeah.
3D real Bigfoot in your yard, then if it gets an arrow in it, maybe you had that coming. I don't know.
they call the local sheriff. I don't know. We got a bunch of Ford F-150s keep driving by my property.
It's like a Ford F-150 magnet.
Yuck, 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 yuck.
Oh my gosh.
But did you know in Montana, the BFRO reports, the Bigfoot Researchers Organization, there have been 46 sightings in Montana since 1978.
I mean, that doesn't
Really?
surprise
Yeah.
me. It's a very, squatchy,
So,
quote-unquote area.
It's a squatchy place.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah, but it's also kind of surprise. I mean, it's really there's not a lot of population there. It's a lot of kind of open wilderness, but not that many trees compared
wouldn't
to like
think.
Idaho and the Pacific Northwest. But I mean, maybe it is kind of a lesser known Bigfoot hotspot. So
Yeah.
well,
That's crazy.
Thanks for rounding up that story,
Thanks,
Pat.
man.
So
That's
there
crazy.
you go.
So fun.
It's time for pop, culture, and the paranormal.
All right. Pop culture and the paranormal. This was something I came across over the holiday break. I hope a lot of you listening and all of us at the table got a good kind of recharge over the holidays, got to kind of rest and relax and
Sure.
all that stuff. Well, I made it a point to try to watch a whole bunch of fun stuff, and one of the things that came across my radar was on Netflix. It's still on Netflix, in case any of you are hoping to find some fun stuff. It is a movie, full-length movie, called Pottersville. And no, it's not about a town themed solely after Harry Potter. It's
It probably exists somewhere though.
probably does.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with Sherman T. Potter. MASH.
No, nothing with MASH either. But it is a town. It's a fictional town. I do forget this is the state in which it's in. Welcome to Paranormal Dads. But it's just a small kind of rural town, and they're known for being like a little, fun escape, like bed and breakfasty style place. But the tourist industry is starting to kind of go down a little bit for whatever reason. And I don't want to give away the entire plot, but the long and short of it is there is a Bigfoot sighting in the town, and it sets the town ablaze. and this great cryptid researcher comes in. He's a complete character trying to come and find the Sasquatch.
Is he the kind that puts the hair to his tongue and puts his finger in here?
Well, kind of like
went
that.
there.
Yeah, exactly. But when the cameras quit rolling, he's a complete jerk to everybody. It's so funny.
Gotcha.
He's just like a
Nice.
So the whole point behind this, it's all centered around the town general store owner and his experience with this creature and what happens with it. And comedy and hilarity ensues.
Huh.
But it's a very fun, and it doesn't go terribly deep, and it doesn't do a lot of. It just has fun with the whole Sasquatch story. One of the things that I did kind of watch, I took kind of some amusement from it, was that they did have some intense Bigfoot enthusiasts like flocked to the town and like set up camp, and they were like living in hotels, and they were like coming down and like, did he do this? And they were asking like specific like super Sasquatchy like deep questions.
And we've met some of these people.
And we've met and hung out and camped with some of these people. And from our experience, it was like spot on, and it was super fun. But it was just neat to see, a lot of this paranormal stuff is done with a tone of like seriousness, and it is serious on some levels, but it's also fun to have fun with it too. And so this story totally has fun with it. Pottersville. It was like recommended under like holiday and stuff, and I think there's kind of a Christmassy feel to it, but it's very much more of a paranormal. I would say a paranormal comedy more than anything else.
Is it kid appropriate?
Cool.
Totally kid appropriate.
Okay.
There is some references. It's the classic thing, like when you were a kid and you were watching something and they make a reference that is outside of your wheelhouse.
Yeah,
there's a couple of those things, but nothing that's completely out to lunch.
It's funny how that works. I recently watched that Tom Hanks movie Big. From the late 80s, I think it was.
Yes.
And I remember as a kid not understanding some of the jokes, and I watched it as an adult, and I just chuckled. I was like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah. Same with that one.
Yeah.
There was stuff that went over your head, and later on you're like, whoa!
Of course, Harry and the Hendersons always one of the status quo as far as Bigfoot movies, but it's good to know they're cranking out new ones.
Yeah, no, this is fun. There's a little twist to it. I don't want to ruin it, but definitely it's fun to see like I said, the paranormal kind of be had fun with too. Interesting fun fact: the man who played General Zod in the Man of Steel, one of the more recent Superman.
So we're not
movies.
talking the Christopher Reeve days.
This is the one, the Superman movie featuring Henry Cavill. The man that played Zod in that was the lead character in this, and apparently directed it as well. So there you go. I think his name, Michael something or other. Anyway, super fun. And like I said, it's kind of fun with Netflix. Once you watch one thing, how it recommends other things. Yeah. It's like, because you watched Pottersville, you might like, and it was still all this other like paranormal stuff. And I was like, yes.
I did start watching, I think it's either Netflix or Amazon Prime has the Bobcat Goldthwait Bigfoot movie.
Yes.
I started watching that. And
is that the Something Hollow?
So, yeah, what's it called?
Sorry,
I'd have to look.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name of it, but
he only did one Bigfoot movie. That's the one.
And it was. I was getting scared.
Yeah,
and I haven't revisited it. I haven't gone back to see how it ends.
And it's done as a scary movie. There's no.
Yeah. I just haven't been brave enough to go back.
I heard it's so good though. I haven't even. I
don't know. Scary movies aren't really my thing anyway. I don't really get into them. But I started watching it, and it kind of took this turn that I'm like, I don't even know if I want to go down that hole.
It wasn't as crazy as the creature from Black Lake, was it?
It wasn't that fun. I like. I'm more like movies that you can kind of chuckle with and have fun with. This was not that. No.
Well, darn it. We got to watch that with Andy sometime.
See, my problem with Netflix is you spend 2 hours finding a movie that's only an hour and a half long.
Exactly.
Right. There's just too many good things to choose from, basically.
Yeah.
Last night, as a matter of fact, my wife and I and my daughter sat down and watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh.
Because my daughter had never seen it, and she was taken by it, especially the music.
Yes.
And then they got to the credits, and she says, "John Williams." Oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That movie came out almost at the exact same time I was born.
Yeah. It was 78, 77, 78.
Because the 40th anniversary of Close Encounters was also around the same pocket as my 40th birthday.
Such a good movie.
Such a great
movie. If you've never seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, go watch it. It's on Netflix. Go see it now.
It'll make you want to visit Devil's Tower and
Wyoming.
Yeah.
So there's a couple movies for you right there.
A couple movies. I'm just going to throw another one in the mix while we're doing just movies in general, apparently. But Eddie, did I tell you that Bob Lazar documentary you recommended? I did buy it and watch it on Amazon Prime.
Oh, yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know, Bob Lazar, the story kind of broke in the early to mid-'90s. A guy named Bob Lazar claimed to have been an employee at the famous Area 51. And what was kind of a unique case of this is he was like intentionally blowing the whistle on Area 51 and making himself so public that if anything happened to him, he would know that it was the government that did it.
Right.
But he passed all polygraph detectors, lie
I
detectors.
think he did 4.
It wasn't just like
4 or
I worked
5.
at Area 51. It was like, here's how the facility is laid out. Here's what I did. Here's what I made. Here's what
I
they served.
saw. Yeah.
Here's what they served in the cafeteria on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
And I mean, so the documentary is kind of like a follow-up of him and what he's been up to in recent years. And it was top notch. It was just a really well done flick and very believable in my opinion. You get to the end of that documentary and I don't want to spoil anything, but he sits down and sketches out a very detailed picture of the craft that he was working on building and taking apart at Area 51 and just doesn't even flinch. I mean, it's just so factual.
Yeah.
He was like, this is what this part did. This was an anti-gravity, blah, blah, blah. And he's talking about it just like it's how a toaster works.
Yeah.
Like just honest and straightforward as can be. So that's a good one. I think it's literally called Bob Lazar, Area 51 and UFOs.
Yeah.
So that's, and it costs $5. It's like $4.99 on Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
I believe
it's a
it is.
documentary.
Yeah,
I mean,
documentary.
it's so good. Yeah, and they show they kind of give you a little bit of a background on him as a person and how he would have even gotten to work at this place. And they showed him in like middle school or early high school. He was building like rocket bikes in his front yard. It had like a bike with like a rocket engine on the back of it.
Kid version of Evil Knievel Sky
Basically.
Cycle, yeah.
And his mom was even like, yeah, we heard an explosion one time in the front yard, and he was trying to make the lawnmower have rockets or something. Like he'd been messing with rockets like since he was a kid. And so this guy is just he's on that,
Very
that
smart.
next level of intelligence with people. So yeah, great show.
The thing that makes it most believable for me is he's not an attention-seeking kind of character due to the fame that he acquired in the mid-'90s when all these, he was invited on all sorts of main TV programs like 2020, Dateline, that kind of stuff. And if he wanted to, he could be touring the world right now, giving lectures about his experiences. And instead, he stays at home and he runs a from home business having to do with like chemistry and chemicals and like he helps make fireworks and stuff for pyro shows. And so he just wants to be left alone and live his life. And just a very believable character.
Could be a wise choice.
I was going to say.
You don't want to rock the boat too much.
Very interesting dude. Just leave me alone. Let me make chemicals and go to work.
That's right.
But yeah, very interesting story. So hey, three movies to pick from now. Do it. Watch them all.
There you go. There's your pop culture segment, everybody.
And now it's time for the main mystery.
All right, main mystery today. I rounded up a real creepy one.
Creepy deepy.
Hold on to your Superman hat, Eddie.
Hold on.
The Jersey Devil.
I lost it anyway.
Now, many people know there is a professional hockey team in the NHL called the Jersey Devils.
I'm thinking Putty from Seinfeld.
There you go.
Awesome.
Great episode.
But what most people might not know, unless you're from the southern part of Jersey, is that mascot was based on a urban legend. And as the story goes, there's an origin story that may or may not come from a kernel of truth. But I'll kind of backtrack and I'll tell you how this folk tale began, and then I'll share with you some recent sightings that, depending on your opinion, may or may not lend credibility to the story. So keep an open mind on this one. But it all begins in...
Cue the spooky music.
Cue the spooky music. So it all started in Leeds Point, New Jersey, back in 1735. Ooh. So we got an oldie here for you.
Crusty oldies.
And by the way, a lot of this info is actually coming from a book I would highly recommend called Unexplained, and it's by Jerome Clark. And kind of a hodgepodge of creepy, paranormal, cryptozoology, UFOs kind of subject matter.
It's a big book, too.
It's a huge book.
Yeah.
It's not just a doorstop. There's a lot of content in here.
Yeah.
But, so, Oh, interesting. I just put something together. So the story begins in Leeds Point, and it begins with a lady known as Mrs. Leeds. So that's kind of generic. I don't know.
Right? She lived in that.
Yeah.
Maybe she,
That's like,
she was the woman that was named after.
Or if they're
Mr.
the
Smith
first
from
one, yeah.
Smithville.
Yeah.
You know? So,
Slice from Pleasanton.
Pleasanton. So Mrs. Leeds, she learned that she was pregnant for the 13th time. 13th time.
That's a lot.
And I guess due to her frustration, she said, this child must be the devil. And as the legend goes, it actually was.
Now, if there's anything to learn from this right here, not to tell anyone how to live, but if you get pregnant and you find out that you're having a baby, don't say the baby's the devil.
Well, and 13,
Number
unlucky number.
13,
I
right.
know,
Yeah.
but come on.
But apparently when this offspring was born, it had bat's wings, the head of a horse, cloven hooves, a tail, and it flew off, as the story goes, into a remote part of the Pine Barrens in the south side of Jersey. And, I've heard this story many
Usually it
times
takes
before. Something about just the term Pine Barrens, it just sounds scary.
Yeah.
Now that's something you don't see every day.
I just imagine like a foggy, dark, forest where a lot of the foliage is missing, and it just sounds eerie. So the Pine Barrens.
The story reads how, born, and then as soon as it's born, it flies
flies
off.
away.
And I'm like redneck doctor being like, man, that's unique. That must be a fully grown devil. It takes a couple days for them to fly off in the woods like that.
It's like
2 seconds old, flew away.
It's like a horse or giraffe, just hits the ground running.
doesn't-
Just takes off.
There's no wobbly leg period.
No.
There's none of that baby deer stuff
It's
going
just
on.
like, I'm out.
It's like Son of Dracula, just flies off, just tears off into the Pine Barrens, like he's late for a hot date. So
Is it a boy or a girl?
it's a bat. It's all fun and games till you start hearing some of these creepy reports. It's actually first known as the Leeds Devil for obvious reasons, and then as time progressed, it became known as the Jersey Devil. But 100 people in 30 different towns claim to have seen the thing as it rampaged through eastern Pennsylvania and southern New Jersey. The first sighting actually took place at 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, January 17th of 1909. So fast forward,
Like 100 something. Yeah.
Right. But what's weird is the legend was maintained for that many years.
Right.
150 years later. So when Bristol, Pennsylvania postmaster E.W. Minister saw a glowing monster flying over the Delaware River, that was the first official sighting, and he said that it had a ram-like head with curled horns and stayed aloft with long, thin wings, almost like a bat. He said it had short legs, the rear ones were longer than the front ones, and it emitted cries that sounded like a combination of a squawk and a whistle. And 2 other men, one was a police officer who shot at it, and also observed the creature.
Now that sounds
Did he have an
familiar.
F-150? Did he happen to drive? Shoot first! Ask devils later! Bang, bang!
So on the 18th, so just the very next day, policemen at Burlington, New Jersey, spotted a flying, quote-unquote, jabberwock with glowing
Man, I want to go back to a time when we used that word all the time.
It's like Alice in Wonderland, like jabberwock.
Exactly.
And stuff. Glowing eyes, apparently, and as soon as residents of neighboring towns were finding mysterious black tracks in the snow, and so it was seen at 6 o'clock the following morning in Burlington, where it was prowling through an alley, apparently. The witness, Mrs. Michael Ryan, said it had long bird-like legs, a horse's head, and short wings. A day or two later, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Mrs. Davis A. White said she encountered it in her backyard in Philadelphia. And this time, it had alligator skin and breathed fire from its mouth, and her screams alerted her husband, who dashed outside and chased the devil to 16th Street, where shortly thereafter a trolley car nearly hit it. So that evening at Salem, New Jersey, a police officer spotted a devil bird, quote-unquote, with one foot like a horse's and the other one's like a mule. Now, I'm going to stop here and say, for us city folk, what would be the difference between a horse's foot and a mule's foot? Pretty much the same thing,
Yeah,
I would
pretty
think.
much, yeah.
That seems really odd.
It is odd. I don't know. It is odd. But
Back in the day, you've got a lot more
That's
exposure to horses and mules, and
that'd be like
you
us
probably
telling
know the difference.
Like us telling the difference between a modern day Ford F-150 and F-250,
Yeah.
where back in the day,
Yeah.
it wouldn't matter, I suppose.
So you're saying the front legs were different than the back? Is that what he's saying?
Well, in this case, the right one was different than the left.
Oh, man. Poor Jersey Devil needs a special shoe.
But it had a horn on its head and an ostrich tail and was 11 feet long, not 10, but 11, as reported. And it goes on and on. My point is, right around this time period,
That guy sounds obnoxious.
it's almost like a chupacabra, where the characteristics physically of this thing just run the gamut.
Kind of up to,
Yeah.
You know,
although it's winged every time.
it's winged, it has wings, kind of horse head kind of deal. But several hours later, Daniel Flynn of Laperville, Pennsylvania, observed the devil as it ran at a brisk pace along the Chester Pike towards Chester. It was 6 feet high, he said, and it had skin like an alligator's. The next morning, Mary Serbinsky of Camden, New Jersey, ran outside after she heard her dog screaming, and a huge creature rose up from the ground and took flight. It had taken, Mrs. Serbinsky reported, it took a chunk out of her pet, allegedly.
Ooh.
Whatever it was.
That's the worst.
Gotta hate that.
Chunk.
I mean, that'll ruin your Tuesday
Yeah.
when the family lab gets a
Sparky gets a chunk out of him.
Yeah, Jersey Devil. Newspapers and zoos were offering rewards for anybody who could capture this thing.
I'm sure they were.
And it was known as the Devil Scare of 1909. All these reports, people's testimony. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what's really weird is people seeing this thing take off from the ground and fly through the air. There's not many birds in the world that are big that fly. You
Right.
know, the ostrich can't fly.
No.
Flamingo can, but you don't have flamingos.
They don't get up in the air. They get kind of skim. They don't
Right.
see like flamingos up above the clouds.
I mean, you have
Peacocks can fly, but you don't see it very often.
Right.
you have cranes and herons. I mean, surely in Jersey you'd have cranes and herons, but you wouldn't mistake a crane of having the head of a horse.
He saw horns.
Horns.
That's
So,
crazy.
Like, what in the world's going on here? So, as a little addition, I found a kind of related article on paranormalinvestigating.com, a little article written by Sarah Mae Smith-Reed. And this is 1855, so just, 6 years before this.
1900,
Yeah. So just a few years before all this stories that I just mentioned. Not near Jersey, but it's a devil-like story that's pretty darn similar. This actually was in Devon, England, so across the pond. And so there was a trail of footprints found in the snow, kind of just hooved footprints, so think of like a horseshoe, so mule-like, horse-like, what have you. And they spanned 100 miles. Experts who looked at these tracks in Devon, England, said that it looked bipedal rather than a quadruped, meaning something was walking on 2 feet.
Two hooved
feet. 100 miles. I mean, from town to town, from pasture to pasture.
They were able to track it that far.
Yeah, they were able to track it nonstop. Just this one, continuous string of footprints. Weirdest thing, and here's what'll give you goosebumps. When the tracks would, go up to somebody's doorstep and they would stop, and then they'd find the hoof prints continuing on the roof of the house until it got to the other side of the house, and then they'd find the footprints on the ground again. It did the same thing through barns, over buildings, frozen ponds, whatnot. And the people who looked at it...
Craziest thing is, how do you find that? Because... Well, I suppose you track it up to the front of the house.
Yeah.
Then they must search all the way around. Oh, here they are.
So then
but they don't walk around. What's up? What's up on the
roof?
roof?
Get a ladder and get on the roof.
Yeah,
that's
But
bizarre.
multiple roofs, they found the same tracks. So
What?
It's almost like the creature had a pair of wings, almost like a peacock, could kind of flutter up to the roof and keep walking. But people who looked at it, they were people who were familiar with horse, footprints and horseshoes and things like that. They said it almost looked like the hooves were hot, and they almost like burned through the snow right down to the grass below. They said it looked like sear marks almost in the snow. So they were very crisp. And 100 continuous miles. So what was it? May never know. Back in that time, what I say, 1855, so it's not like you had your camera handy.
No.
But so there's no known photographs of it, but a couple local artists drew, the most accurate pictures, representing the data that they could find, and people were unnerved. I mean, rightly so. The local churches were having prayer circles and prayer chains because of this. People were scared to go out at night. Made the newspaper, and so fast forward a little bit to March 5th, 2009.
What?
Again in Devon. Again in like a little suburb called Woolsey, Devon. Some person in their backyard found what they could only call devil's footprints. So again, one continuous line that led out into the woods and kind of disappeared. So it kind of, the people who were familiar with the urban myth, that kind of reignited the curiosity. So I mean, yes, it began in Jersey, but things like this are seen in other parts of the world as well. A lot of the one in Devon. Skeptics and scientific-minded people who were at a loss of what in the world could have walked continuously for 100 miles, over top rooftops and everything. Mm-hmm. There is all sorts of absurd claims, anything from an escaped kangaroo to some people theorize it could have been a helium balloon that was dangling a string below that just so happened to hit the ground every 4 feet or whatever it was, and
in the shape of hoof prints?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They were reaching here. Basically nobody knew what they were. I think the hoof prints were said to be about 4 inches long, about 2 inches across, and the spacing wasn't that big. There was just a couple feet between each print, just about the same as like a person would walk. And
kind of reminds me of the Mothman, although it seems like Mothman spends a lot more time in the air.
Yeah.
And this sounds like more of a terrestrial type of a being.
It's a bonkers looking creature. I mean, from
the
sketches, it looks like some weird, just like a children's game where it's like, I got a goat head with a, but it's you get into like demon stuff and like whether it would be like supernatural or like an animal. I mean, I'm my gut is almost like, and I'm slow to go to this point in this. I don't know if anybody listens to the show, but it sounds like if it is a thing, it sounds like it's some sort of demon. Right? It's some sort of demon,
right? Versus like a known animal like Sasquatch.
Form over function, right? Like, or like it's like all of the cryptids that we've discussed on some level kind of like mechanically make sense for their environments. Like, Sasquatch, and we talked about squatchy areas and how, and there's large mammals that already live in those areas, like bears and stuff like that. They were saying, they didn't even say if it can support a bear, then it can support a Sasquatch. Wasn't that one of the big takeaways?
Yeah, I think that
from the conference
they
we
were
attended.
Like, from the food and everything else. If it can support a bear, then it can support a Sasquatch. And it's like Nessie, and you go down the list of these cryptids where it kind of makes sense. I mean, there's ample fish, there's ample room, and there's all the technical stuff that would need to be there for this. These are things that seem so, and not abominable. Like, there's no function there. There's no like reason for it to look the way it does. It doesn't seem like any of those things in a natural environment help it. Like, actually having bat wings and a horse's legs really help with this.
Well, technically speaking,
if you had hooves, it would be. So it just screams demon on some level. Like, this is not a naturally occurring thing.
And that's why I had to bring this up, because you hear the initial story. Oh, a lady gives birth to the devil and he flies off into the Pine Barrens. Oh, ha ha! It's like, oh, that's ridiculous, and it is. But what the heck were people seeing?
Yeah.
In was 1855,
1730, you said.
Yeah.
Like that.
That's when the story began.
Oh, but when the rampage
all the
started,
sightings.
yeah.
Sorry, I got that date wrong. Maybe
No.
1905.
1905, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what was everybody seeing? Mass hysteria. But could that many people completely misidentify a crane or what were they seeing? Like the story does not make any sense.
So, are there any recent sightings of a Jersey Devil-like creature that you've heard of?
Well, just that one I mentioned, but that wasn't really a sighting so much as just seeing footprints.
Evidence.
Back in Devon again. I'm sure there is, Pat. I mean, if you dig deep enough on the internet, you'll probably find a blog or something of
Seems
recent
like Josh
sightings,
Gates went out one time on Expedition Unknown or
he
something.
did.
And
There was a Jersey Devil episode at one point.
Jersey Devil.
And I think, I don't think they got it on camera, but if I remember right, I did think they heard something large flapping as it was flying overhead, and they couldn't identify what kind of bird that could have been. But
And you're getting into a thing now that either has a breeding population, which once again, like its shape makes no sense.
right,
Yeah.
And so you either need a breeding population, or this thing has a naturally long lifespan, which would lend itself once again towards something deeply paranormal, not just an animal we haven't identified yet.
Right.
This is like bordering on a whole different conversation. Like,
yeah.
demon.
So, that's a weird one for you. Every now and again, we got to throw something out there that's so bizarre it'll just make you shake your head.
Those are the ones that are scary too, because you did invoke. I think you mentioned this off mic that you had watched or started watching it, The Witch, the movie.
Yeah, I found it on Netflix.
Yeah,
And I remember I was like, oh yeah, that's the show, that's the movie that Eddie was talking about. Just the preview looked too scary for me because I'm kind of like you, Pat. I just don't do scary movies that well. But
super scary. But this is kind of that era that you're kind of invoking, and that style of scary. Like we laugh it off because it seems so ridiculous. But this lady literally said, like, I think I got the devil inside me. I mean, that's scary.
Yeah.
When you like when you lay that out for what it is, like it sounds insane, but it also sounds deeply disturbing. If any tiny piece of that's real,
Yeah, it's well, hopefully you enjoyed that, everybody, and hopefully it doesn't give you nightmares, and goes to show what an awesome dad I am here talking about the Jersey Devil.
We have a very special guest
with my
on
4-year-old
Paranormal
daughter
Dads.
on my lap. You want to say hi, Sky?
We got our own little cute little devil right here.
Here's a little angel to balance out.
There
the
you go.
There
Exactly.
you go.
She doesn't leave hoof prints. She leaves
Juice stains.
Yeah, juice stains everywhere she goes. Orange Dorito
Dust.
streaks. Yeah. So, well, thanks for listening, everybody. As always, big thanks to the people at freesound.org for providing us with the music and sound effects and everything. Send us feedback if you want, give us reviews, all that jazz. You've heard it all before, but we appreciate your support. And as always, feel free to send us suggestions for future topics for our main mystery segment. Anything else, boys?
I think that about covers it.
Also, feel free to give us a review on your podcast listening machine of your choice, whether it's iTunes or it's Spotify or if it's Podbean. Give us a review; it'll help us out. And also, I've mentioned this before, but we have Paranormal Dads shirts for sale. If you would like one, please message us on Facebook with the sizing and pricing information. We can talk about all that privately.
All right.
Patient.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Let us go in peace.
Devil be gone!
I thought I saw alien, but it was an airplane.
Oh, really?
And then what happened?
What color was it?
It was red and blue.
Did it do anything weird?
No, it's just the airplane. I thought it was an alien.
I see.
Have you ever seen Bigfoot?
No,
Where do you think he lives?
I think he lives somewhere else.
Does he live in the woods behind our house?
No.
No.
He lives in the place where the presidents died in.
Oh.
Oh, you talking by Mount Rushmore?
Yes.
You think that's where he's at?
Yeah.
It's pretty squatchy up there. There's a lot of trees where Bigfoot could live.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Why do you think Bigfoot has so much hair?
Because it can keep it warm when it's the winter time.
You think so?
Yeah.
That's why I have so much hair.
That's what keeps Eddie warm too, huh?
Scientifically proven. We doing the Maine,
Got a
Doing the
name.
Maine.
Mizzly Maine, Jersey Devil.
You're your devil.
I just
If
keep
there
thinking of Putty from Seinfeld. Did you ever see the one where he dressed up? They were going to Jersey Devil hockey games, and he was face painting. And Elaine was like, she didn't want any part of her boyfriend dressing up.
Yes.
Face painting. He kept going, Devils, Devils.
What show is that?
Seinfeld.
That's so funny.
Bam!
Pew, pew, pew.
Sorry. It's like the Japanimation thing where it keeps getting worse.
Yeah. Like Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway,
We have a lot of chuckles on this show. Welcome back, everybody.
bag of yucks.
Here we are.
Back of yucks. What does that even mean?
Remember back in the day when they called laughs yucks? Like
Like
that was-
yuck, 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 yuck.
like Popeye. I remember I had a joke book and it said the word whoa.
You had a joke book.
1,000 yucks. That was what it was called.
Yucks.
My dad only bought me books from like vaudeville era.
And that's why Eddie is the way he is.